Yesterday, December the 5th, was at the same time dedicated to three topics: energy and industry, just transition, and indigenous peoples. So I will focus my morning briefing on just transition, but to show that the topic is at the nexus of the other two, that the three things, energy, just transition, and indigenous peoples, are very closely interconnected together. And I don't know about you, but for my part, I've heard the phrase just transition dozens of times at each panel I've attended. And so I think that just transition could be one of the main buzzwords of COP28. So what is just transition? It is the name of the approach that addresses the challenge of net zero transition in a fair and just manner for both people and countries. Because climate change and green transition will generate opportunities for sure, but also will exacerbate social inequalities, both at local and global scales. So just net zero transition has the objective to harness social opportunities and to minimize social negative impacts while decarbonizing global economies. And just transition reminds us that the S and G of the ESG acronym shouldn't be forgotten parts of the transition. So maybe first a few words about the place of just transition in previous COPs. The concept of just transition was initially championed by trade unions. Thus, it includes a strong commitment to social dialogue and workplace rights, and a significant mention of it was secured in the 2015 Paris Agreement at COP28 and was further developed in the Just Transition Guidelines released by the International Labour Organization. In 2018, the concept of just transition was advocated by Poland at COP24 because, as you know, the country is heavily dependent on coal, and so the Polish president of the COP submitted the imperative of considering the negative socio-economic impacts of the transition. And last year, at COP27, government and industry actors showed awareness of considering the negative impacts of the transition and the need to address, I quote, the social dimension gap of the transition. And for the first time, a pavilion hosted by the European Commission and the International Labour Organization was dedicated to the topic of just transition. And at COP27, two main challenges were pursued. First, tackling social aspects of the just transition with initiatives such as the launch of a Green Jobs for Youth Pact, which aims at closing the skills gap for green jobs for young people in developing countries, or the unveiling of a just transition finance tool on banking and investment activities to help financial institutions to embed just transition principles through their operations. And second, at COP27, as you know, we saw the birth of the idea of a fund dedicated to loss and damage from climate-related extreme events in developing countries. And as you know, COP28 opened with the official launch and the initial funding of this fund dedicated to loss and damage, which is a key element of climate justice and just transition. So we can say that COP28 opened on just transition announcements. Very important. And so far, the fund has gathered $650 million, which is a good starting point. You know that it's maybe very far from what is at stake, but symbolically it's very important. And so many questions also about how this fund will be managed and who will benefit from it, and when remain open, as you know. Now, I'd like to share that what came out yesterday was how much the energy sector is at the crossroads of many just transition issues. So let me mention 4 of them. First issue, manage a just phase down or even phase out of fossil fuels. As you know, at COP28, few days ago, there was the announcement of a coalition to accelerate the phase out of coal. This coalition is called the Coal Transition Accelerator, and the goal is a 75% reduction of coal by 2030 compared to 2019. The coalition is driven by countries such as France, Canada, United States, European Union, Indonesia, and it is committed to launching a coal transition commission to unlock private and public funding to support the transition. And a strong focus will be made on just transition, because, for example, most in the coal-based power sector, most jobs will disappear in the European Union in a decade, and the regional effects could be harsh because in the European Union, these coal jobs are concentrated in 10 regions only, 4 of them in Poland. So you can see that just transition is a real issue. And if I take another example, for its parts, South Africa needs to transition from a 90% coal-generated electricity system to one that incorporates renewable energy such as solar and wind. And the country is well known to have launched on May 2022 a just transition framework that includes just energy transition program, the JET program, which is an inspiration around the world for just transition frameworks. Second issue, a company's job growth relies to decarbonization. To be capable of limiting global warming to plus 1.5 degrees, as you know, the capacity of electricity will need to triple by 2030. And at COP28, 118 nations are now committed to this goal. So the questions are, how can this be turned into an opportunity to create quality green jobs that are inclusive, gender, age, disabilities, and that, of course, respect all the essential rights of workers. How can training, reskilling, upskilling be made available to the wider workforce? How can we help underrepresented groups to access to these new green jobs opportunities? These are some questions that were raised yesterday about just transition issues. Third issue, ensure universal energy access. In the energy sector, we can clearly see how social goals can be into tension with climate goals. For example, 940 million people in the world, so it represents 13% of the global population, do not have access to electricity. Connecting them with electricity will inevitably increase GHG emissions, unless it comes from renewable energy sources. So the questions are, how can electricity from renewable energy sources be made affordable for everyone and reachable everywhere? How can we promote decentralized, community-run, and renewable energy schemes to empower people and help them save on energy bills. These are some questions also about just transition issues. Fourth issue, recognize the role and the rights of indigenous peoples. Indigenous communities often face significant challenges related to the development of new energy projects. It is true for classical energy projects, but unfortunately it is also true for renewable energy projects. According to Reuters, between 2011 and 2021, more than 200 allegations of land grabbing, forced displacement, and violations of indigenous people's rights were reported. 44% of these allegations came from the solar and wind sector. So it is essential that the development of new renewable energy projects are made in consultation with and in respect of the indigenous people's rights. And furthermore, an inclusive approach to the transition will also allow us to benefit from the indigenous people's wisdom related to nature-based solutions, and so enable better protection of biodiversity, greater resilience to the effects of climate change. Just transition for some, just transition for all. This is a win-win mechanism. So in conclusion, it is hoped that COP28 will succeed in establishing the just transition as the new normal perspective for addressing environmental transition challenges. But the just net zero transition will only be effective if all stakeholders jointly assume their responsibilities. So first, robust government policy. We need policies and regulations to ensure that climate goals are delivered in a way that protects communities and harnesses opportunities. Second, engagement from corporations. Companies need to anticipate the social risks and opportunities of the transition and incorporate them in their net zero plans, transition plans. Third, finance in action. We need to integrate just transition principles into green finance. And finally, cooperation with NGOs and communities. We need civil society to build just transition solutions with all the other players, and also being safeguards of potential abuses. Because what we are facing is not just a transition, but the challenges associated with a just transition. Thank you.
That's a pretty tough act to follow, Sophie. My notes are nowhere near as extensive as that, but yeah, thanks for having me, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to give a bit of an update, following on from Sophie there on just transition and moving to focus more on buildings and the built environment, because today is the theme for today is multi-level action, urbanization, and built environment / transport, but World GBC is going to just basically call it Buildings Day. Nice. I think before we get into what's happening today, a little bit on yesterday and building on what you said, Sophie. I think one of the big announcements to draw attention to, again related to the just transition, but also to the built environment, was an announcement around mission efficiency, so global renewables and the energy efficiency pledge that came out. So the countries who are signed up to it have committed to work together to triple the world's installed renewable energy generation capacity to at least 11,000 gigawatts by 2030, and taking into consideration different starting points and national circumstances. They've also committed to work together to collectively double the global average annual rate of energy efficiency improvements from around 2% currently to 4% every year until 2030. And really to put the principle of energy efficiency as the first fuel at the core of policymaking. And I think, in relation to buildings and the built environment, energy efficiency is often touted as the golden rule, the number one action. So I think that's a very welcome announcement to hear. And also yesterday, we had some fantastic events. Emirates GBC had a wonderful session on embodied carbon in the region, and there was plenty of build-up in terms of what was coming today. Christina Gamboa hosted a ministerial session with representatives from the US, Slovenia, I'm pretty sure, and the UK, and they were discussing both the industry breakthroughs that were announced yesterday, so cement and another one, although I forget which that was, and obviously the buildings breakthrough that is coming today. What's happening today? What's happening with buildings and the built environment? I think the main announcement, the main focus of today will be around the buildings breakthrough. So if you're not familiar with the buildings breakthrough, it is a new built environment construction focused breakthrough that is rallying 27 countries around the shared goal to make near zero emission and resilient buildings the new normal by 2030. And this buildings breakthrough is a result of and linked to the 2030 breakthrough agenda and the race to zero. And they have several sector breakthroughs that they've been announcing over the last couple of years that are seeking to accelerate and engender further action within their respective sectors. This one for the built environment is being co-led by France and the Kingdom of Morocco. And as I said, they've got 27 countries backing them in terms of this collaboration. And together they represent a third of the population and half of global emissions. So hopefully that's a good start in terms of them taking action in the built environment. And as we all know, sort of unlocking collaboration in terms of taking that action is really crucial. And I think what we are excited about at World GBC and hopefully everyone in the sector is that this buildings breakthrough represents a significant step in terms of policymakers, national policymakers, making a pledge to put buildings and the built environment front and center, and really recognizing that opportunity that they represent in terms of being a critical climate solution in relation to decarbonisation more broadly. So I'll tell you the events in a second, but buildings breakthrough, I think that's the number one takeaway that's coming up today. We also have, not World GBC I should say, but there is some content in a regional focus. So top UAE real estate developers will today deliver a blueprint for decarbonising the built environment in the region, which has been supported again by the high-level climate champions team. So that's launching today and sees the formation of a working group to support national ministries in developing and enabling decarbonisation policies. And I think again, what this blueprint is a fantastic example of is that private sector leadership from those companies who are already going further and faster and beyond existing policy and regulation, and hopefully encouraging policymakers to take heed of that and become more ambitious in turn. And it's in partnership with Emirates Green Building Council. Exactly. So definitely check that out if you have time. I think from the World GBC perspective, today we're obviously supporting the buildings breakthrough. At the same time, we are launching an open letter today. We've been gathering support from the global network of green building councils, net zero carbon buildings commitment signatories, and our partners, and obviously green building council members, to get together behind this open letter to political leaders and policymakers here at COP28. And through this joint action, we're aiming to obviously demonstrate again the critical role of the built environment in tackling the climate crisis that we are in the middle of, and champion the activity being implemented by our network, whether it's green building councils supporting their local sectors in accelerating that transformation, or indeed their members who are taking the necessary action to decarbonize. So that will be announced today. If I read the press release correctly this morning, I think we have over 350 companies who have signed in support of this letter. All of the green building councils in support as well, and obviously, the Green Building Council network represents around 46,000 companies globally. So I think that's a really significant moment and a really significant, again, example of that collaboration that we all know is needed to accelerate our shared goals. I was going to highlight some literal events, but I'm sure most of you probably know. I think before maybe I do that, one of the things to also touch on in relation to the buildings breakthrough and a lot of the work being done around the built environment at the moment is the Building to COP Coalition. So the Building to COP Coalition is a grouping of NGOs and industry organisations related to the built environment, World GBC, WBCSD, Global ABC. I'm saying a lot of acronyms, and I'm hoping that you know who they are, but if you don't, ask me afterwards, and I can let you know. Resilience Rising, and several others. And really the coalition was born a few years ago in the run-up to COP26 at Glasgow, and has really been a driving force in terms of ensuring that buildings and the built environment stay as a key theme and impact point on the agenda. And hopefully we're seeing that reflected again today with the built environment as one of the main agenda points of day 6. The Building to COP Coalition is again heavily involved in the buildings breakthrough. And if you are interested in learning more, and also you want to know where all of these events that I'm going to list off in a second are, then I would strongly encourage you to go and check out the Building to COP website. It's really sort of a central repository where we're all trying to collectively gather the information and the content that we're putting out there in relation to buildings and the built environment, and using that coalition as a vehicle to show our collective efforts towards that influence. So in terms of events today, if you haven't already got a busy schedule, which I'm sure you all have, we have the launch of the Buildings Breakthrough itself at 12:30 today in the Blue Zone, and then later in the day we'll have a follow-up session with lots of organisations at 3 o'clock, again in the Blue Zone in the Global Climate Action Zone, about delivering the Buildings Breakthrough. So highlighting some of the supporting initiatives that have already been identified, and highlighting how the private sector and these initiatives can support the national governments who have brought forwards this breakthrough initiative, how the private sector is going to enable them and enable further action. We have some fantastic GBC events today. Again, in the morning at 9 o'clock, we have a session titled Scaling Decarbonisation, Solutions and Drivers in US Commercial Real Estate. Any guesses as to which GBC will be hosting that? No? In the Blue Zone, yes, but it's US GBC. I was just going to and then we have two sessions, or at least 2 sessions today. Let me know if there's more. From Emirates Green Building Council, we have a session titled Towards a Sustainable Transition for the Built Environment Sector. That's at 12 o'clock at the Resilience Hub in the Blue Zone, and then Green Finance for the Built Environment at 12:30 in the Climate Finance Hub here in the Green Zone. And also, there is an Emirates GBC networking reception tonight at 7 o'clock. We all know Hopefully see you there. And finally, I think just two others to highlight. Um, there is a Building to COP Coalition event at 4 o'clock in the Green Zone in the DP Pavilion. It's titled Buildings and Cities, Pivotal Solutions for Shaping Our Future. I think that's a particularly good session today. It's very specifically solutions orientated, hearing from very specific initiatives that are trying to accelerate action. And finally, the built environment. Oh, I should have said this with the other GBC events, but this one's from UK GBC. It's titled "The Built Environment: a Catalyst for Real-World Response to the Global Stocktake," and that's also in the Green Zone at 4 o'clock. So that's a mere snapshot of all of the buildings and built environment content that's on today, and obviously throughout this week and the next few weeks. Again, I think the best way to check that out is the Building to COP website. Their events calendar is where we've all been putting all of our collective effort to gather that. So do take a look. And I think in general, if you have any questions about the buildings breakthrough or about the open letter campaign that World GBC is running, then please reach out. But yeah, I think that's pretty much a summary of what's coming up today.